the good news, friends, is if the Supreme Court is an honest broker of the law, and I know the word if is doing some heavy lifting there, if the Supreme Court is an honest broker of the law, they will reject Donald Trump's claim that a president can't be prosecuted for his crimes. Why? Because there is no law supporting that assertion. There are only three sources of law: statutes, federal laws that are on the books. There is no law saying a president is immune from prosecution for crimes he commits while in office. Two, there's case law. When an appellate court decides an issue and issues an opinion, that becomes precedent. That's case law. That's a second source of law. And the third source of law is the Constitution. Well, there's no federal statute. There is no case law, no appellate court opinion from the Supreme Court on down, and no constitutional provision supporting the assertion that a president can't be prosecuted for his crimes. None. So the good news is the Supreme Court should reject it outright, but if they accept review of the case, they will easily be able to decide, just as Judge Chutkan did, just as the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals will do, that there's no law supporting Trump's BS assertion that he's immune from prosecution. So that is looking at the issue through a legal lens. Now, let's look at it through a real-world lens, recognizing who those right-wing justices on the Supreme Court really are, because unfortunately, they have a track record, and their track record shows they have no real allegiance to the law or the Constitution. Why do I say no allegiance to the law? Well, we all saw them testify, many of them testify over the years in their confirmation hearings before the Senate, when they swore under oath that Roe versus Wade, the constitutional protection, the constitutional privacy rights of women to make their own reproductive health decisions, they swore under oath that precedent had nothing to worry about from them. They said, it is settled law. It's been affirmed several times over. Stare decisis, it's worthy of respect. The message they communicated to we the people in their testimony was that Roe v. Wade has nothing to worry about if I am confirmed to the Supreme Court. And then, at their earliest opportunity, they didn't issue an opinion saying the law had changed, or their opinion had changed, or things had evolved. They said Roe v. Wade was egregiously incorrect from the moment it was decided. So what they did in their deceptive confirmation hearing testimony is, real people have a word for it, they lied. That shows they have no allegiance to the rule of law. Another example, we learned about these lavish gifts, $250,000 recreational vehicles, expensive vacations, private jets, staying on exclusive resorts, all on the dime of Republican billionaire donors. And some of the justices violated our federal laws by declining to reveal that, to include that on their public financial disclosure forms. They concealed it. Again, it shows no allegiance to the rule of law. And with respect to allegiance to the Constitution, well, they revoked women's constitutional privacy rights to make their own reproductive health decisions. They gutted affirmative action. They are endorsing discrimination against the LGBTQ community. They really have no allegiance to the privacy rights, the constitutional rights, the civil rights, the human rights of we the people. So I think in acknowledgement of who this Supreme Court is, let's take a real world look at what the Supreme Court might do if the rule of law doesn't persuade them to reject Donald Trump's claim of absolute immunity, there's another reason I believe they will reject Donald Trump's claim that a president is king, he is above the law, and he can't be prosecuted for his crimes. And if you'll indulge me, earlier today, I put pen to paper. I guess that's a passé saying now. I put finger to phone, and I tried to collect my thoughts, and I posted why it is I believe the Supreme Court will ultimately reject Donald Trump's absolute immunity claim. So if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, I'd like to read that post to you now. Unfortunately, we currently have a Supreme Court that seems determined to revoke or contract rather than expand human rights, civil rights, and equal rights. And when you couple this with the recent revelations about the obscenely lavish gifts and financial favors provided by Republican billionaires, which were undisclosed, unreported, concealed by members of the court, we are in the darkest of times for the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. With that said, the Supreme Court did refuse to accept the review of all of Trump's BS election challenge cases in the aftermath of his 2020 election loss. And now, the Supreme Court has refused to grant special counsel's request to review, on an accelerated basis, Trump's BS claim that a president can commit any and all crimes while in office with absolute immunity from prosecution. If the Supreme Court is an honest broker of the law, I know, it will also refuse to review Trump's BS immunity claim once it's rejected by the D.C. Appeals Court. Please remember this. If the court bestows upon Donald Trump absolute immunity, thereby putting him out of the reach of our nation's criminal laws, the Supreme Court will have demoted itself to a second-class branch of government, as Trump could then commit any crime he wished in efforts to undermine the authority of the Supreme Court. And friends, I'll bet we can all agree on one thing. The Supreme Court loves its supreme status and will never relinquish it by ruling that a president is above the law. So, if nothing else, take heart in the Supreme Court's allegiance to itself and its own supreme status. It should deny Trump's BS immunity claim based on the law, but if all else fails, the court will deny Trump's BS immunity claim, motivated by its own sense of self-preservation. And friends, sadly, I believe that to my core, because to us, justice matters, but to the Supreme Court, it seems that little matters beyond its own supremacy. Friends, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.